I mean, no, I'm not. I'm not gonna play on the franchise tag. It just doesn't. It just doesn't make sense from a in any way. I mean, I've never really played for money. I've never really played for. You don't want to miss out on this money because that's just not what I play for. So it's hard to get me to do things for money. It's bigger than just 1 year you got to get this so you don't miss out on it. It's bigger than that for me. It's a league-wide problem that I feel like I'm in a situation to help out with.
Well, there you go. Our NFL insider Dan Graziano joins us now to talk about some key players that have yet to work out a deal before the deadline. First up, we just heard from Von Miller. If it's not about money, can you tell us what it's about?
It is about money. I mean, that's the thing. As Bill Polian's been saying the last couple days on our air, when a player says it's not about money, they're not telling you the truth. But, this is a deal that should get done by Friday. They're down to the nitty-gritty in terms of guaranteed money and the schedule of when the guaranteed money pays out. And once they get to that point, they really weren't that far apart a month ago when this was all blowing up over some fake deadlines the Broncos were putting out there. I think this gets done by Friday. So while I see what Von Miller is saying about the franchise tag and the issue the players have with it in general, it's not likely to be an issue for him because I think there's a deal on the table that's going to be a good one for him.
Okay, so you say you believe it'll be done by Friday. If it is not, what are the options? What happens?
Well, the options are play on the franchise tag or not play. And that's why I think,
A lot of people are going to try to say, oh, he's the best power forward of all time. I think that's too narrow. He's one of the 10 best players of all time. His impact goes so much beyond his position. Unquestionably a top 10 player of all time. And when you add in his basketball character to the whole equation, he doesn't take a backseat to anyone who's ever played the game.
Tim is extremely low key, but he's a fantastic person. Got a big heart. Just a great guy.
He was one guy that you can touch every guy on that team through. Everybody respected Tim. Tim treated everybody the same. He was never bigger than his teammates, and there's not too many stars you can say that about. Very few. He's the best human being I've met, and I just think he wants to spend time with his kids and be the great father that he is.
The raves for Tim Duncan pouring in as Duncan retires as just one of 3 players in NBA history to win 1,000 career regular season games. You see the other 2 on the list, Kareem and the Chief. They won more games in their career than Duncan. However, of these 3, Duncan's the only one to win over 70% of his games. Michael Wright joins us now from San Antonio, where Greg Popovich is scheduled to speak today at 4 p.m. Eastern, but Tim Duncan is not. Michael, what are you hearing about why Duncan chose not to attend his own farewell news conference?
Well, let's not rule him out completely. There still is a chance that Tim Duncan may talk. Now, it might not be today, but I've been hearing that in the next couple of days he can decide to come out and talk. Now, Tim Duncan has been on vacation with his family. He spent a lot of time this offseason kind of reflecting and deciding whether he wanted to come back. And obviously, ultimately, it came down to his family. His family, when they wanted him to stop, he said he was going to stop. So, I don't think this was a situation where Tim feels a certain kind of way. He's just being Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan is low-key. He doesn't want to draw any attention to himself because he feels like he already did all that on the court.
Okay, so at least for today, Pop will handle the duties. He has never coached a full season without Tim Duncan on his roster. What, Michael, are you expecting to hear from him today?
I think that's the thing we're going to hear. Greg Popovich loves to joke about the fact that he's always had Tim Duncan. He's like, I don't know how good of a coach I really am because I've always had Tim Duncan. And when you've got Tim Duncan, it makes it a lot easier to be a head coach in the NBA. So I think you're going to hear that. You're going to hear about how Tim Duncan embodies the culture here. Tim Duncan helped establish the culture here of selflessness, total team play, everybody else but yourself. I mean, that's the culture that he's established along with Greg Popovich. And I think you're going to hear Popovich reflect on that. You're going to hear some of the early stories when those guys first got together and just all the years they've had together and how they've worked so hard to establish what they have here, these 5 championships, and just, like I said, this culture of just greatness. And they've dominated the NBA for going on 20 years now. That's unprecedented. You can go to any league and you won't see that type of run of success.
Unbelievable, absolutely, the run they have been on together, Greg Popovich and Tim Duncan. We're going to hear from Pop 4 o'clock Eastern today. Michael Wright giving us the story from San Antonio. And now we kick it back.
Head seat, it definitely has a lot more demands on it, and I've kind of embraced those.
You know, it's kind of funny. I've been watching your morning dress from the time you got here at the Winfrey Hotel in Hoover, Alabama, side of SC Media Days, and the cameras and the media and the fan. What's the biggest difference? I mean, how are you taking in your first SEC Media Days as a head coach?
I'm just embracing it. You know, the guys I talked to coming in that have been through it, you know, every one of them shared with me, embrace it, enjoy it. It is the SEC. It just means more here. That's the mantra, and it's true. You think about the SEC, you think about passion and energy, and a lot of these venues I've been to, they got it.
And I love seeing a coach's face when he walks through and he just sees all the cameras as well. People care about press conferences in this conference, and you're seeing that firsthand. Now, I think we know the fact that you come over from Nick Saban's program, and Nick Saban protege with the defense, what you were able to do there helped you get the job at Georgia. So I wonder some of the characteristics of what you picked up at Alabama that you want to bring back to Georgia.
I think the biggest thing is that there's more to just being a team. It's more about the program and the things you can surround our players with to help them be successful. That's the biggest thing I've learned from being there over the last 9 years is just every facet, whether it's psychologically, physically, whatever we can do, nutrition, every aspect of the game, we want to try to give our players the best chance, and that's what I want to bring to Georgia.
You have a pretty good situation going on coming back to Georgia. Sony Michel, Nick Chubb, two of the best running backs in the country, both rushed for over 1,000 yards last year, but both right now banged up. Health status of those guys as we get ready for the season?
Well, you know, Nick has done a great job of rehabbing. He is a hard worker. He's very passionate, energetic about the game. I think that Nick is going to be a guy that comes in and has to get used to those first hits, but I expect Nick to come back. I expect him to be back 100%. When that'll be, I don't know. Sony, on the other hand, we're going to have to wait and find out. You know, the injury's still fresh. It just happened, and he started rehab. We're hoping that muscle repairs itself. But, you know, Sony's one of the kids that's a great leader on our team. He went through spring practice and carried the ball, never complained once, and a lot of the team trust Sony's ability.
You've got the certain talented true freshman quarterback Jacob Eason coming in. A lot of people comparing him to Matthew Stafford when he played at Georgia. Big decision there from you for the quarterback position. Yeah. But now as you embark on your first season as head coach at Georgia, have you had that moment yet where you've understood that, in fact, your role has changed from a coordinator of a position group and a unit to the leader of a big-time program in the SEC?
I don't know if I've had that one moment. Certainly today would go a long way to indicating that when you walk up in front of tons of lights and cameras. But every day I experience something different. And you grow as a coach. You get great experience and great value making those decisions. And that's the biggest difference in this seat compared to the seat I was in last year is the amount of decisions you got to make every day.
And one of the biggest seats you've got to get used to is when you come up an escalator at a hotel and the cameras are there. Life has changed for Kirby Smart, the new head coach at the University of Georgia. Again, 10 wins for the 4 times in 5 years. Kirby Smart now in charge at his alma mater. Live coverage of SEC Media Days continues throughout the day here on SportsCenter. Have you had that moment yet where you've understood that, in fact, your role has changed from a coordinator of a position group and a unit to the leader of a big-time program in the SEC?
I don't know if I've had that one moment. Certainly today would go a long way to indicating that when you walk up in front of tons of lights and cameras. But every day I experience something different. And you grow as a coach. You get great experience and great value making those decisions. And that's the biggest difference in this seat compared to the seat I was in last year is the amount of decisions you got to make every day.
And one of the biggest seats you've got to get used to is when you come up an escalator at a hotel and the cameras are there. Life has changed for Kirby Smart, the new head coach at the University of Georgia. Again, 10 wins for the 4 times in 5 years. Kirby Smart now in charge at his alma mater. Live coverage of SEC Media Days continues throughout the day here on SportsCenter.
We have some more college football news. Ex-Penn State football coach Joe Paterno told a 14-year-old boy, quote, "I have a football season to worry about," end quote, in 1976 after being told of an alleged sexual assault committed by assistant Jerry Sandusky. That, according to documents unsealed in a Philadelphia court. The unidentified man testified in 2014 insurance litigation that he told Paterno about the incident the day after it happened. Paterno said before his